Silvr is one of the leader in digital lending for digital players in France and Germany. And myself, I'm a founder and a coach in the startup ecosystem for 15 years now. And so I was really excited to join a company that was building on making financing more accessible for the SME space. Well, I feel that, everybody's talking about AI right now, about how that changes how we build content, how we build also code, and how we can, go a lot faster in our implementation. We've been toying around with that, but in a more measured way, just to making sure that we're incrementally building our engine and incrementally building our connection to other platforms. But that's clearly like a zone of focus that's really been extremely loud in the recent days. Yeah, we're using it, but we're just proving cautious because we're very late in portal, and a lot of the core of what we're doing is building our trust with our users. So how do we make sure that our underwriting and our core structure is as built up as it can without necessarily depending on AI, but using AI on improving or going faster on our developments, or using AI on going faster on our content or on our marketing strategies are actually pretty interesting. So I think one of the key trends is, and we've been talking about this at the panel, is about embedded finance and about how that's sort of evolving customer experiences. Because, digitalization and fintechs in general are this new promise of a very novel experience. But that novel experience is often, built up by one company in the previous world, but in the more embedded world, it's brought on by several companies that are building this new experience, this new service, this new moment where you actually talk about finance or get financed. I think that's going to be very new, this sort of like co-conception, co-branding, co-building of products, of services, of experiences. One of the highlights was with one of the other panelists, Artem from Vitamin. He had this very, I think, strong comment that I think is extremely relevant about nobody really owns users. I mean, brands or companies also often go, specifically in the embedded worlds, like who owns the consumer from one, or the client from A to B, but the client doesn't want to be owned, and company A or company B doesn't really own a client. So how does this evolving perception about what people want and how we can actually connect to them, that's actually something that I think is going to be really interesting, and specifically in Europe, how we're figuring that out. I think we're a little more advanced than other countries or other parts of the world where either that's not considered or that's actually passed on very fast. That's a very interesting question, because I feel that one of the places where innovation is the most is the most free, where you're seeing really different things, is, for example, in West Africa, where low tech is actually growing, and you're going through things through mobile, but through really low tech kind of mobile things. They are bringing out new use cases and new interesting areas, which I think is really great. It does help you question how we develop things, specifically in, I would say, Western tech. But I also really fundamentally believe that Europe is actually building up really interesting cases about, but more regulatory, more consumer-based questions about who owns data, how we use data, how we're respectful, how we're trustworthy with data. And I think that when you look at the more American or the Asian spaces, they don't really treat data well, or personal data well, and that becomes more of a deep concern in fintech in general. So yeah, traveling around Europe, going to Stockholm, going to Warsaw, going to even to Kiev on certain aspects. There's a lot of different things to see in Europe, I think. Yeah.